Okay, well, I will introduce myself. My name is Domenick Galarneau. Most importantly, I'm a person in long-term recovery from the disease of addiction. A little over 13 and a half years. It's an honor and a privilege to be the lead facilitator here for the CCAR training team. I've been a coach and a recovery coach professional for a little over 4.5 years now, and with CCAR. It's been an amazing adventure in a journey of self-discovery, and I love what I do here, and I love being with coaches. So that's who I am. So let's get started. Before we go to the next slide, I would like to ask a question. Can anybody define recovery for me? We're going to work on our working definition of recovery. Anybody, go ahead, raise your virtual hand. What is recovery? Define it for me. Kim.
I've got the SAMHSA definition right there. I could read it for you. I think, like, for me, that recovery is about having integrity where my actions are in alignment with my values, which is something I can only do if I'm in recovery.
Awesome. Love it. Yes. No, I don't want the SAMHSA definition. Not just yet. We'll get there. Anyone else? What is your definition of recovery? What does recovery mean to you? Define it for me. Nicole.
Recovery to me is healing from past traumas and learning more about myself so that I can move forward in a healthy way.
Love it. Thank you, Nicole. Did you have your hand up?
Hi, Tanya again. Recovery for me is just kind of acknowledging my struggles and just trying to put my best self forward.
Thank you, Tanya. Aurel, I said it right this time, I believe.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, definitely. Recovery for me and in my experience is a journey toward wellness or toward whatever idea that we have and that we're aspiring to become better.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else want to tell me, what does recovery mean to you? Define it for me. It says Catherine, but I believe you said your name was Patty. Patty Smith? You're on mute, though.
Everybody calls me Penny, Penny.
Penny, okay.
Okay, so recovery, first of all, in the beginning, 27 years ago, meant peace to me and a life. And since that time, I realized that recovery for me is service, giving back, and being there for the guy that, or gal that needs help. So that's what recovery is for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Penny. And Deborah.
Good morning, everyone. What does recovery mean to? Oh, that's not what the question is. The definition of recovery. I think it's restoration from. I heard somebody else say trauma, but restoration from behavior that was destructive.
Absolutely. And I love that word, restoration.
Yeah.
That's right around my alley. Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. Khalees, you had your hand up. Good morning to you.
I think, well, and then I was like thinking about the question and I'm like, I don't know, like mine's kind of personal, but I was kind of thinking recovery is like whenever your head and your heart kind of align and you're like really like living into that authentic self.
I love it. No, I love it. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to put up the SAMHSA definition. So a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. And then we'll put up CCAR's approach. Our approach is that you are in recovery if and when you say you are. So that's our approach here at CCAR. I loved everything everyone said. Great definitions. So what I want to do now is we're going to jump into the next one here, and we are going to talk about the science and art of coaching recovery. So this will show you that the science is the what to do, and the art is how you do it, right? And in the middle, that is your style of coaching, right? Where you combine the two and we start coaching, right? So that's our little slide. So we're actually going to go to science. What is science? So that'll be our next slide. So science is defined as the systematic study or structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and testing theories against the evidence obtained, right? So our questions for you is, what is this science of coaching? And what are the 4 fundamental principles of recovery coaching? Can somebody answer this for me?
I think I can answer it.
Go ahead, Deborah.
4 fundamental principles of recovery coaching is being aware and being able to manage my own stuff when it comes up when I'm engaged with a recovery. Asking really good questions, right? Seeing your recovery and as a resource, right? And I don't know what the 4th one is, but I love the 3-legged stool. I think that is the bomb. Like, you can use that in every area of your life, not only with recoveries or in this arena, but you can use it in your personal life with dealing with people. But I can't think of the last one. Okay. Oh, somebody help me. Active listening.
Yes, actively listening. Awesome. So when we ask you, what is the science of coaching? What is the science?
I don't know.
We just talked about it. Khalees, go ahead.
I'll go. The science is when you practice those things. Like, it's all of those things put together. Like, what is your tone like when you're asking good questions? Like, what are you listening to what is being said to understand? Or are you listening to respond? Like, it's just like embracing all of those principles together and like putting them into practice. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So it's taking all of the 4 fundamental principles and putting them into action. So exactly, that's exactly what it is, right? So we're gonna talk about art for a moment. So your art is defined as the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, producing works to be appreciated primarily for the beauty or emotional power. Okay, so with this definition, what is your art of coaching and how do you express your art? So our first slide talked about the how to do it and the how you do it, right? So your art is how you do it. What is your art of coaching and how do you express your art? Any hands? Jody, go ahead.
I would say one of the key parts of my art of coaching is humor.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Jody.
Hi there. I think about like asking good questions and the way in which I ask good questions and making sure they're really open-ended questions and based on what I've heard people saying. And I think that there's an art to asking really good questions.
Absolutely. I agree. Yvonne.
My art of coaching is really identifying and acknowledging and also feeling states. You know, depending on the feeling, what will guide me and direct me on which action or which conversation I should have. But I first need to identify the feelings so we can both be on the same page, me and the recovery.
Absolutely. A good self-awareness. Absolutely. And Penny.
I believe that, yes, we ask good questions, but we need to for me, I need to listen to the answers to those questions and listen with an open mind. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Khalees.
I think my art is like holding that safe space and like giving people permission to show up as like themselves and not like fear of judgment or anything. I'm just thinking of, I was thinking like, it's kind of hard to really define what your art is, but I'm going based off of what like people tell me. So, and then just like, I really believe in people. Like I care deeply, like my heart, and like I can feel it and they can feel it and they feel like I care about them. And I think that when we give people permission to show up as themselves, like magic happens, and it's like they can feel safe to explore that and learn about themselves and then make those steps to change.
I think you did a beautiful job explaining your art, actually. It was very good. Go ahead, Trav.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of Khalees. I think for me too, it's all about validation. You know, when I think about folks in recovery or in active addiction, wherever they're at, they've probably been told for most of their lives that they're not good enough. They've never felt safe to be seen and heard for where they're at or what they're trying to do. So it's really important that me as a coach, like, provide that safe space. Like, no, it's okay. You can feel the way if you need to feel that way. That's great. Just tell me more. Right? Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Trav. So when we talk about our art, all of our art is going to be a little bit different, right? Like my art, I'll describe as, I guess I would say, I like to empower people to make decisions for themselves. I like to empower them, and I like to support with love and compassion, and without being judgmental, and being like, even if I feel like, and separating myself from somebody else's process and allowing their process to be authentic. That's how I would describe mine, right? I love to empower people to live that self-directed life, to have that want and that will to want to change, right? So I love all that was great. So let's go to the next slide. We're going to talk about the three-legged stool, right? Look at that. You see the little annotation. Did anybody catch that? I was hoping people caught the annotations. Like, I spent a lot of hard work on that. Anyway, me and Trevor laughed about that earlier. So treating people as resources is the seat, right? Then we have listening actively or actively listening, discovering and managing your own stuff, and asking good questions. So we have some questions. What we want to do is we want to give you a chance to go into a breakout before we unpack this. So what we want you to do is we want to specifically focus on the seat. If treating people like resources is the science, what is your art? So that's going to be the question, okay? So we're going to specifically talk about treating people as resources. If that's the science, what is your art? So we want you to discuss that in your group and talk about, like, what is your art of treating people as resources? How do you do that? So we're going to do 5 groups at 10 minutes. We're going to give you 10 minutes to discuss that. And when you come back, we're going to unpack all that awesome stuff that you guys talked about. All right. All right. So we're gonna say, did everybody understand the question? I'll say it one more time. So if treating people like resources is the science, what is your art? That's the question. And we'll talk to you guys when you get back. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Anybody want to share their conversation with us? What did you talk about? What is your art? How do we treat people as resources? Anybody? Aurel, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it's the art is how I bring all these, the three-leg stool and the base together, my unique way of doing it, and how I facilitate it, organically, if you will, with the person, with the recovery. Um, you know, as you said, treating them as resources, not just resource for me to learn from, but for them to learn from, them to pull out and start to figure out and find their strengths, weaknesses, develop their plans, if you will. How is it said that we have everything we need to become great already, but it's just tapping into it and how we actually find that, the magic in that moment.
Thank you. Daisy, did you still want to share?
I did. I captured some, I think, in the spirit of the RCA, right? A reporter, recorder, reporter. I did take some notes on Jody, Penny, and I were in our breakout room. And some of the things that aligned with all three of us was, asking the good questions to participants, community members, resources to kind of inquire of what's out there, what has worked, what has not worked. It allows the strengthening, right, of that bond, that connection and relationship, but it also allows or supports, right, buy-in. Because as I think it was Aurel was sharing, we are best resources, and sometimes, we get into human service. I use the example of a probation officer telling us we have to go to AANA. But in being our own resource, we know what works and what doesn't work for us, right? I think my participants are the experts in their own life. We get to meet with them, right, for a short period of time, but yet they have lived their life, their entire life, and know what works and what doesn't work. And asking those good questions is really the foundation that connects, or it's like the wrapping for so many aspects of the recovery coach relationship.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daisy. Anyone else? There's 5 groups. Come on, groups, you can do it. Khalees.
Sure. So I was in a group with Leda and Anita and Deborah, and we talked. I said curiosity was the first thing that came up for me, was like being curious, because I'm like, what do you think about that? What are your feelings? Why do you feel that way? What is your opinion? Like, I want to explore that with them. And then being open-minded. I really like she said something like feeling them out, and I'm kind of like a vibey person as well, like, you can feel that bad juju in the air if it's around, like, etc. Letting them be their authentic self. When we talked about walking with them, exploring what's going on for them. And then I kind of talked about, like, again, creating that safe space for people to, like, be seen and heard and valued. And, like, when people feel like they belong somewhere, like that belonging, then they open up and they feel valuable, worthy, etc. So that was some of the stuff we talked about.
Absolutely. Thank you, Khalees. Anyone else? Yvonne.
I was in a group with Virginia and Aurel, and I discussed, I talked about not knowing whether I'm asking the right question, depending on what stage the individual's in. I might have to bring, take the question up a notch or bring the question down a notch, not always knowing. Again, I heard it in the room, feeling an individual out, seeing what the vibe is, trying to figure out what stages they're in and stuff like that. I might not know if I'm asking that person the right question. So I might have to change my direction depending on, how they receiving it.
Absolutely. Thank
That's
you,
it.
Yvonne. Anyone else? Treating people as resources. What is your art? So let me ask you this. If listening actively was the science, what is your art? What's your art of listening actively? What do you do when you're really listening to somebody? Anyone? What's your art? Go ahead, Charlene.
So what I like to do is reflective listening. So we do a lot of reflection. I feel like I'm pretty good at just kind of saying like one word or 1 or 2 words, and then they keep going, off they go. And really, I think it's mostly in an effort to get them to argue for themselves, convince themselves to, just hear their own thoughts, so they can either get some revelation then and there, or if they're anything like me, usually they'll go sleep on it for a night or 2 and then get some revelation out of their own thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlene.
Yeah.
Anyone else? How do you actively listen? What's your art? How do you do it?
So for
Go
me,
ahead, Nicole.
so for me, I have to be intentional and be empathetic. So without me being empathetic, it's sometimes I was sharing in the group that sometimes with some of the people we work with, it's challenging. So being intentionally empathetic, caring about the person, identifying with them, and seeing the commonalities helps me to be a better listener.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nicole. And Khalees.
I think kind of like listening to understand, I don't always have to have a perfect response, but like whenever they know that they are being heard, like they explore that more too. And I'll just share, can I just share something really quick? I was just doing a training or something, I can't remember, this past week, and they were doing some role plays, and one of the persons who was playing the role of a coach, like I could just tell she was in her head and she was not like actively listening, and it was kind of like looking for the next response. And I'm thinking in my head, you've just missed like 3 gateways where you could have said, how can I help you create that space for you? Or how could I do that? And that was me in my head. And like, when you can see that, like in other situations and people where you're like, you just missed this opportunity to really plant seeds and lay this foundation, but then you went off on a completely different subject. And it's like, I don't know what I'm going to say at the time. I tell people all the time, I'm a rambler, I just show up like, but that's where the magic is too, is because then I show up as I'm a human, and then they feel like they're actually being heard rather than giving these strategic questions and answers. Like, I'm not a robot. I don't know. Sorry.
No, absolutely. So with what you're sharing, I agree, because you're actually showing the importance of understanding the science, right? That's the importance of understanding the science of coaching. That's, is to know when those opportunities arise so that you can use your art to make that connection, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about. So I appreciate the story. Thank you. And then, yes, all about connection, brother. So Penny, go ahead. You had your hand up.
So, Khalees, is that how you say your name? I like what you said, because that's the truth. If we try to, or at least for me, if I tried to come in with a cut plan of what I'm going to say, it never works. Partly because I'm not that kind of person, and 99% of the people I'm dealing with aren't those kinds of people either. The other thing for me I have to do is 2 things. I've got to have a piece of paper in front of me so I'm not taking lengthy notes, but jotting down things, because I'm old, so I've got you. So I need to write things down. And the other thing is I try to look at the client while they're talking. I think that's a disservice if you don't. We're human beings and we need to connect eyes to eyes, I think. So that's all.
Thank you, Penny. And you definitely gave us some of your art in that, right? So thank you. So discovering and managing our own stuff, if that is the science, what's the art? How do we do that? How do we discover and manage our own stuff? I know that's always the hardest one. Go ahead, Khalees.
Well, I was going to say, get yourself a recovery coach, like this is, I mean, like, take care of yourself. I always say, how can I support others on a journey of self-discovery and self-improvement if I myself am not willing to do the same? Like, I have to keep my head and my heart right. I need to put that stuff in check. And like, if I have biases coming up, if I'm like acting out and not agreeing with them, am I really treating the person like a resource? Not that I do that, but like, am I really like, there's some stuff I need to get taken care of that I'm not always right. I know that, but whenever I'm curious and open-minded, I learn more from my recoveries. Like I learn from my recoveries. You know what I mean? They have so much to give. We just have to be willing to listen.
Good point. Thank you, Khalees. Trav, what do we got, brother?
Yeah, I think it's all about that ability to open your heart to someone else's experience. And for me, and Khalees, you can probably remember us having this conversation in the Advanced Academy. It's like self-care is massive in this. You know, I look at self-care as like putting on my armor to start the day, right? And by doing that, I'm better able to be open to other experiences, or maybe if someone's pushing my buttons, I'm better protected from it. I think it's just that's the foundation of this discovering and managing. It starts with you. Thanks.
Love it. Thanks, Trav. Daisy.
It's having that self-awareness, right? When you're engaging with a participant, a provider or something, and your internal flags are saying something, right? Self-reflect on those, maybe not at the moment, right? But look back at it. I call it my inventory at night through my process of recovery, right? And thinking of, you know, what does that mean for me? Why was it activated? And even tapping into my supervisor sometimes from one participant to another and hitting her up on the phone while I'm driving and telling her, you know, I felt this way, and, you know, kind of processing. And somebody else mentioned it, right? Coaches need coaches too. I call it my accountability board. But I have people in my life through my network and my job that really support me in asking good questions themselves to get me to get deep into why I thought that might have been activated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daisy. Yvonne.
You know, I was gonna first say know thyself, but I'm gonna switch gears on that a little bit. Because in order for me to be able to say that now, I had to do some things some 20 years ago. I don't think I would have been able to do this work had I not worked on myself for 7 years, 20 years ago through therapy. If I didn't do that, I would not be able to do this work, because I know for a fact, you sit across from you, you're gonna have that one person that's gonna, you know, not remind, trigger, you know, whatever. And had I not worked on myself, I'm not too sure I would have been a sufficient, efficient coach or in my case, trainer. So I did some work, and I'm so happy that I'm at the same job for 26 years that gives that type of support. In the beginning, you know, was encouraging folks to go get therapy and work on yourself. You know, they knew what was coming, I guess, in the following years, in order for them to work on themselves to do the type of work I was doing back then, which was a lot of trauma work. I needed to work on myself. So that's why I started with Know Thyself. And it helped me tremendously. Again, I heard somebody else say job support. My job supported me through a whole host of things to get me to this point now. All right. I came in as a client, and I'm assistant director now. So they helped me a whole lot because of what they encouraged me to go do back before in order to do this work now.
Love it. Love all of it. A lot of hope in that. A lot of hope. And I love that you sit across from yourself. What a great way to think. That, you know, it's like the little humble sandwich that I have to eat every time I start to get frustrated. I'm like, wait a second, that is you. You did the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I remember that all the time when I'm coaching. I love it. I love it. Penny, go ahead. You had your hand up, or oh, you muted yourself though. You muted yourself. You were off.
I can't really say, but I have to agree with you, Yvonne. If I hadn't done the work I've done over these years, I couldn't have done this work. I was not in this field at all before I got my certification and everything. But the work I did with counselors and AA set me up to be able to do this work. I'm an engineer by trade, and so I'm using a whole different part of my brain and my heart. And this is what I should have done all my life. I get up the 4 days a week that I work, and I say to God, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I have to thank our clients too. And I'll be quiet now because I'm getting a little verklempt.
No, thank you for your vulnerability. I love it, actually. I do the same thing every morning. Very grateful that I'm here with all of you today, right? Just to wake up and do this as, my purpose in life, right? So I think I've always meant to be a coach, right? So I love it. So let me ask you this. If asking good questions is the science, what's your art? And this will be the last question on this slide. What's your art? How do you ask good questions? You are the experts. Aurel, I'm sorry, Aurel.
There we go. It is, give me 1 second. I'm over here taking care of a little one. She's sick. I couldn't bring her to daycare, so I stayed home. All right. The art of asking good questions is really finding out what's relevant to that person and drawing from that.
I like that. Looking for relevance, and yeah, absolutely. Are they saying what they really mean, right? Keep asking questions, you'll find out. Right? That's why it's the quest for the question. Go ahead, Jody.
Yeah, I think something that I have learned is asking questions I don't know the answer to. And like, that's okay that I don't know the answer. And it's okay if the person I'm talking with doesn't know the answer. And we can like wrestle with that together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jody. Anyone else? Any of my CCAR people know how to ask a good question? Anita, go ahead. You're on mute. There you go.
Sorry. I like to just find out what has heart and meaning to them, like what brings that, what's brought them or what brings them joy, who's important to them, what's important to them.
Beautifully said. Thank you. All right. So on that note, does anybody else want to share it before I move? Going once, twice, sold. On to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide, Trav. So what we have here is treating people as resources, guiding principles, values, and components of recovery. Yeah, it hopped right in. Isn't that cool? So self-directed, what the person in recovery wants, desires, and can accomplish, not what the provider imparts to the person. Strengths-based, focused on strengths and capacities, talents, and skills. Empowerment, providing the tools needed to empower the person. Basic needs, recovery is not possible without meaning, purpose, goals, housing, work, and personal development. Hope, people do recover and change is possible. Optimism, you can do it and many do. Positive self-identity, by William White, recovery focused, not disorder focused. Being of service, giving back. So my question will be, can somebody be in recovery if recovery is achieved? So no, this is how I want to word it. Is recovery achievable without self-direction? That's going to be our first question. Anybody? What do you think? Is recovery achievable without self-direction? Go ahead.
No, I don't think it is. Self-direction is, even the best coach in the world, self-direction is an integral part of it, a necessary part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aurel. And Nicole, did you have your hand up? Can you put it down? I always catch hands. And
I did, but he gave the same answer I was going to.
Okay. So we're at a consensus. Does anybody think yes? Because I'm pretty sure everybody's thinking no. Yvonne, go ahead.
I think yes. I'm only basing it on myself. I didn't know what I wanted. I mean, I didn't know that I even had a direction at first when I got into recovery in the beginning. It took me at least a year to come up with that whole self-directed, what I desired. I didn't even know I desired the substance. So, you know, the first year I really didn't know, but I feel like I was taught how to self-direct my own recovery, not that I went into it like knew what I was doing in recovery. So that's why I said I think it can be achievable. You know, I think people are taught certain things. Well, me personally was taught certain things that I didn't know was even possible. I didn't even know was, you know, can help me. I don't know. I'm just saying. I feel like I think that's how I got clean and sober. On my own, and I didn't know I was self-directed. I didn't know nothing about that. I didn't know nothing about what I desired. I still desired the drug. I didn't know I can accomplish anything. I think I was taught that in the beginning. That's it.
Thank you, Yvonne. Daisy, next.
I feel better about myself with Yvonne's sharing. So sorry about the dogs.
It's okay. Do you want
Sorry
me
about
to
the dogs. Yeah, sorry about the dogs.
go ahead? No worries.
I feel validated and feel better about myself with Yvonne's response, because my recovery in the beginning was also mandated, right? My pathway of recovery is the carceral system, and they have also been integral in both my education and professional career. I had an amazing unicorn supervisor who, through his relationship of asking questions and challenging me, right, kind of what we call, you know, challenging ambivalence, really pushed me to, I'm going to show you, right, and I'm going to go to school. And then I stood there. I think it came a point where partially it was self-directed, because I made the decision to go back to school, even though he was instigating me, right, to go back to school. And I made the decision to continue the next right choice and the next right choice and the next right choice. But at first it was mandated.
Thank you, Daisy. And Val.
Hi, Daisy said almost exactly what I was going to say. You know, it was, I think somebody can be like forced or directed into sobriety or mandated into sobriety, but when it comes to recovery, that's a little different, because I think recovery is more about being and self-directed. It's something that comes within you. Like I don't think you can be mandated into recovery, but you can into sobriety.
Thank you, Val. Jody.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of echo what others were saying too, but I think for me, I also didn't know that like I had agency or autonomy in my recovery or my life for so long. So for me, like being self-directed was something I learned in recovery. It was something that I got out of recovery. It wasn't necessarily how I started recovery.
Awesome. Thank you, Jody. Aurel. You got your hand up, but I think you disappeared. There you are.
Yeah, can you come right back to me? I'm over here trying to
No, go ahead. Do your thing. Do your thing. Anyone else? There was one more hand, but it disappeared. All right. Well, we have, for the sake of time, we have to move on. So let's go to the next question. Sorry, Aurel, we got to move on to the next question. So on this second part here, we're talking about strength-based. So bringing attention to the recovery strength, is that treating them like a resource? So if we're bringing attention to a recovery's strengths, right? There's also a word for that, right? If we're doing that, are we treating them like a resource? And 10 extra points if anybody can tell me which one that is from the Recovery Coach Academy. Go ahead, Khalees.
Wait, what was the last question?
So bringing attention to the recovery strength, is that treating them like a resource?
Well, if I'm asking them what their strengths are and what they think their strengths are, then I would think that I'm treating them like a resource. Is this a trick question?
It is. Well, we always do things intentional here. You know that. It's always deliberate. That's why I ask the questions in a certain way.
You're making me question myself. If I'm like, because I think you can be, on one hand, I'm like, well, if you bring attention to their negatives or the things that they're not doing well, if you're the truth teller role, then like you can bring awareness to all of that stuff and help them discover what that is for them. So yeah, I would think that you're treating them like a resource.
I agree. Daisy, go ahead.
I agree. And at first I was like Elise, thought it was a trick question. But again, right, tapping into different parts of our role. Oftentimes I have found that when, you're doing that first, the 0 session, that, they most don't know their strengths. And I think that in treating them like a resource, we can highlight things they've been resilient through and things they've overcome to kind of help them, ask the question, well, you went through so-and-so. What do you think got you through that, right? Do you think that's a strength? Those kind of questions to get them to self-reflect of their own strength. Sometimes they don't know. I mean, even I sometimes.
Oh, you muted yourself.
I'm sorry about that. No, but I think that was it. That's all I had to share.
Okay. Thank you, Daisy. So can anybody tell me what that is? There's a word for it. What are we doing when we're bringing attention to a recovery strengths and treating them like a resource? What's that called?
I have my hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Deborah.
I think it's called building their self-efficacy.
Yes.
Yes, because
Good job, Deborah.
build their confidence and their belief, and they begin to discover, oh, I got all these great things about me. And if you see it, then maybe I can believe it too. Right? I don't know was that the word you was looking for?
Absolutely. You hit it right on the head.
Yes.
Yes, supporting self-efficacy. Thank you so much. You hit it right on the head. So that's what I was looking for. Awesome. So when we go to the third bullet point, right, it says empowerment, providing the tools needed to empower that person, right? So when we empower others, are we treating them like resources? Go ahead, Khalees. I see the face. Go ahead. What do you got?
I'm just so like, yeah, I do. If I'm like, I believe in you, like what you have is enough. Like I'm here, like I'm all day.
Absolutely. Anybody else? When you empower others, are you treating them like a resource? There's a reason for all this. We're gonna get to it. We are, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that you do. I absolutely believe that you are utilizing them as a resource while empowering them.
How do you empower them? Tell me a little bit about your art. How do you empower them?
Okay. First, and even going back to the initial discussion of self-direction, finding what's important to them, because I believe that people in recovery, or even before they even see that they're in recovery, they want something better for themselves. Everybody want to be happy. Everybody want, joy in their life. It's just a question of how, and trying to find out what's accessible to them, what's available to them, what's unique in their life. Because I believe everybody has purposes. And so trying to dig into that, and then helping them find how they can utilize those things toward a better life of happiness without substance use, or without whatever else might be, preventing them or being the obstacle from their happiness.
Absolutely. Thank you. And anybody else? How do you empower others? everything is going to tie to the four-legged stool all day long. So that's the purpose for this. Go ahead, Trav.
4 words. I believe in you. You know, when I think about pre-recovery, no one had really ever told me they believe in me. I was a big time people pleaser. You know, like what was really important to me was that people believed in me enough that I would do something for them. Right. So like when I got in this business and I started meeting people and I heard Phil Valentine on my first day at CCAR say, I believe in you, it lit a fire in me that I have never felt before. So I think those 4 words are very, very powerful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Some of the most powerful words are I believe in you. And there's another one too that was always very effective in my recovery is when talking to somebody and they said, me too, when somebody actually understands, right, the power of one person helping another that suffer from the same condition, right? I think there's a power in that. I really, really do believe that there is a power to empower others, right? I love it, man. So basic needs, right? Let's ask a question about this. How likely are people to recover? Hold on. How likely are people to recover without feeling like they have meaning and purpose? If you felt like you had no meaning and no purpose, how likely would it be to recover? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Go ahead, Val.
Well, it's probably not likely because you feel you have no value. And if you have no value, what's the point? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Thank you, Val. Yvonne.
I'm with Val. If you have no purpose in life, you know, if all you know, a lot of people have a lot of trauma that I've worked with in the past and, you know, been told some things that as adults, they actually live those things they've been told. And if they have absolutely no purpose at all, then what's the purpose of me? I'm only here because I'm mandated, but I don't really want to be here, Miss Yvonne. You know, that kind of thing you get. So I don't think they can actually get there without having no purpose in life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yvonne. Anyone else? Think about when you first came into recovery. How likely, if you felt like you had no meaning and no purpose. Go ahead, Deborah.
And when you put it in that framework, when I always think about basic needs, I think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I was homeless when I first got clean. Did I have necessarily a purpose? I didn't even believe anything. But once I got housed, like I got an apartment, I thought that was like, I got food stamps. I can keep a food stamp case because I couldn't even do that in my addiction. And those basic things, like I had somewhere I can shower at that I didn't have to share with other people was big thing. That was big to me. And that moved me towards developing meaning. If you get what you know what I mean? It moved me towards believing or getting towards the possibility that maybe this recovery thing I might need to give it a chance because I'm not homeless. You know, I can buy food. Food has always been a big thing for me, so you know, never mind.
No, I agree. And I appreciate you sharing that. So I also, when I got into recovery, had just came off of 5 years of being homeless. And, you know, without food, clothing, and shelter, could I find any meaning and purpose? Like, how hard is it to find meaning and purpose when you don't even have the basic needs that you need?
Right.
Right. So this kind of goes to the overall coaching, like when we're coaching people, how hard is it to find that? Go ahead, Khalees. What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I believe in miracles, and my role as a coach is to believe in the capacity that people can. I'm going to be the positive person over here that's like, I think that people can still find recovery because I can help them. I might help them discover their meaning and discover their purpose. And I might be able to walk with them and provide resources to get housing and benefits or food, or I'm just going to be the positive Polly and say, yes, I think people can find recovery still.
No, I love that response too. Oh, before I share, go ahead, Tanya. Go ahead.
I'm gonna shut my camera off because my service isn't great. But my thoughts to this were most times, given the lifestyle, we can find meaning. It just takes on a whole different light, like your meaning becomes different, and it can sadly hold people to the lifestyle they're in. Like, say, if you're somebody who can get stuff for people, that makes you feel like you have some meaning and purpose, and it can trap you in that lifestyle. So it's trying to get people into a more positive lifestyle where they feel more positive meaning, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. So for me, personally, the reason I asked this question like I did is because I'm not quite sure when I came off the streets if I had meaning and purpose. So when Khalees said yes, because I can help them find it, I think it took me a while to find meaning and purpose, but I know that I couldn't have found that if I didn't have the human basic needs. If nobody actually treated me like a human being, if nobody met me where I was at, if nobody had showed me any love and compassion, would I even be in recovery today? I don't think so. I think it took a special soul to get me to where I'm at, right? So that's why I asked the question. A lot of these questions are very personal to me because I don't know, right? Like, we are our own best resources, right? So that's like what this training is about, is really tapping into that, into that spirit. I don't know how else to say it except for that, into that spirit, right? So let me ask you this question. How do we inspire hope? It says hope. People do recover and change is possible. How do you inspire hope in your recoveries? When you're working as a coach, how do you inspire, or just anybody in general? Because we coach people that aren't even our recoveries, right? It's kind of in our blood, right? So how do we do that? Aurel, go ahead.
I would say by actually as a peer, showing them that it is possible, being relatable, that's definitely meeting them where they're at and helping them overcome the particular obstacles like homelessness or hunger, these other things, and showing with these small steps, achieving these smaller goals, and these things might be big in of themselves, showing that it is possible if they apply themselves or commit themselves to the goal or whatever that goal may be. I start with small steps and trying to, again, try to build efficacy so that they can. But again, being an example, relating my story as applicable. Like you said, homelessness or whatever the challenge may be, and I can use my own lived experience to show how I overcome it and how they can overcome it as well. Just throwing out that possibility.
Absolutely. Thank you. Penny.
I believe talking to people about where I've been and where I am today shows hope. It's one way to do it. They can see that where I was and where I am now, and I try to show them examples of how they can take those steps to move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Penny. And Yvonne.
Really short story. I, was running late the other day. Is one of our original clients was running out the building, and his body language says something was wrong. I just said good morning, and he said good morning. I need a job, and I'm like, well, you tried this and you tried that, and do you have your high school diploma? I could put you in the training when our grant comes back. And he said no. I said, wait a minute. There's another training you could take that's called Lived Experience, and the ACE Institute delivers these trainings. You can do these for free and you become certified, because most where we're at, most folks are looking for certified peers. Either some type of peer specialist, some type of SERPA, they are looking for certified peers in New York like crazy. And so I felt like he wasn't eligible for one thing. Let me give him information for something else. So he is coming back in next week to meet with me so I can put him on a track to start his AI training. So that's how I provide hope. When somebody can't get in one door, I try to give information where they can open up another door. All right. And that's with either coaching or training or just like you said, in general. I don't work with this individual. I just know their familiarity to the agency and I always see them. And I noticed the body language was just off for this person. And I stopped what I was doing, running in the building, and just attended to him. His whole demeanor changed from when I first see him fly out that window. He was smiling, he was happy, and he said, "I'll see you next week, Miss Yvonne." So I try to provide hope any way I can, whether I'm working with you or I'm not working with you. And that could be through providing information.
Absolutely. And that actually just made me think of a question, actually. So does providing somebody with the resource, is that treating people as a resource? Are we supporting self-efficacy by doing that? Are we meeting people where they're at? I mean, what do you guys think? I think that was a great example. Aurel, go ahead.
No, as far as what Yvonne did, a great example. With some, I see some case managers, right? In other instances, not this instance, other instances, just throw resources at a person, and it's like it can be overwhelming for that person. They don't have options if they don't also come in and help guide the person with along those resources that they just gave them. It's more like a smorgasbord of like a whole long page of whatever, then it is not necessarily treating the person as a resource, because there might be challenges there that they didn't also help that person overcome. So just throwing resources at a person doesn't necessarily solve the problem, because there's a plethora of resources in New York, but can you help the person navigate or connect or even find the utility of it? As a coach, I think that's our role.
Absolutely. Bridging the gap. Bridging the gap. I agree. Anyone else? How do you inspire hope? Got some hope hustlers in here. Nobody wants to show the stash. What, Did you like the analogy? At least Aurel left. Come on, share a little something with us. How do you inspire hope? Khalees.
I think sometimes whenever, and I can tell you from my own experience, like whenever I was in the rut, like I might be like, oh, things are never going to change, right? Like, things are never going to change. And so I always tell people, like, when they're struggling to find hope, is like, do you, like, if I say I believe in you, or like I know something's going to change, if you struggle to believe in that yourself, just believe that I believe in it. And sometimes whenever you put that onto, like, if you said, Khalees, like, I believe in you, like things are going to change, like I can believe you because I might trust you, but like I can't believe myself, or I can't trust myself, or I can't hope. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Like flipping it around.
Yeah, like self-doubt.
And I always say too, do you believe like the sun's going to shine after it rains, or is the rain going to stop? And people are like, yeah. And I'm like, so why can't we do that for ourselves? We can hope for the sunshine after the rain. I think it's simple.
Unless you live in Connecticut right now, Khalees. If you lived in Connecticut, you would never think it was going to stop raining.
I also really too, I was looking through my book because I thought I had one about hope, but I have like hope and faith kind of go hand, like are very similar, right? And I have this thing written down where it's faith is like finding answers in the heart. And so like, I think that's.
Ooh, you froze. We didn't catch the last part.
I said faith is fine. In my book, I have like faith is finding answers in the heart. And I think that if you just dig a little deeper in that, like there's hope and faith and all that good stuff there.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Tanya?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just the reminder of how difficult that first step is, like, and how brave it is. I think we can lose track of things in societal expectations and not give ourselves the credit that we deserve. Like that first step is so huge, and just reminding them that they acknowledged that change was necessary. Something was demanding change, and they actually took the step, towards making that change, and how huge that is and how brave that is. And asking for help is the hardest thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100% on that. And also, I learned a long time ago that expectations are just resentments I don't have yet. Right. So placing unrealistic expectations on people. Right. I dig it. I dig it. Anybody else? All right. Then I will move on to the next question. So, optimism, you can do it, and many do, right? How important is it to help the recovery create a positive self-identity? In your work as a coach, how important is it for you to help the recovery to create a positive self-identity? How important is that? Please go ahead.
Like on a scale from 1 to 10, I think I'm gonna say too, like here in England as well, like I've really noticed like they like the negative. They like to talk about the war stories, and and I hear all the time where recovery coaches are future focused. Like I'm solution based, I'm like, what are we doing today to move the needle forward? Where like and from my own experience too, whenever I could come in and talk all about my war stories, but I knew nothing about recovery. No, like that's what I'm learning, how to like look at the past and stuff. And I just think we need to remember recovery coaches are future focused. So we come in with solutions. What can we do today to make some movement happen? And I think it's also like reframing that. Like for me, that took time to reframe my language from negatively speaking to positively speaking. Even like in my emails, I don't apologize anymore in my emails. I'm sorry I'm late, or I'm sorry, or like, please, like, if you feel, do not worry about reaching out. Instead of saying, why am I telling somebody do not worry about reaching out? Like what, instead I could just say, if you want to reach out, please feel free to do so. Like, it's just, that's a mindset shift. So like, I'm all about positive, and I think that takes time too.
Absolutely. Tanya.
I'll just say for me, it's huge. I know I remember what it was like out there. I was beat down, my spirit was gone. I lost myself. I was constantly numbing, so I think it's huge to just kind of reunite them with themselves, who they are fundamentally at the core, because we don't know, it can be hard to remember who we are. So I think it's huge.
Absolutely. I agree. Anyone else? Come on, guys, jump on in. Is it important? Trav, go ahead.
I think it is. Absolutely. And I think the key is that, a recovery might not see that recovery is possible yet. But as coaches, we can, treat them in such a way that helps them realize that they deserve recovery. A lot of people don't feel like they even deserve to get better, that, they've stolen from people, and they've been living on the street, whatever it is. And I think we can really, take the time to level with them and be like, hey, like you deserve this. Don't let's not get it twisted. Like, you're a human being, and you deserve the dignity and respect. And to add to that, I think it's important as coaches too, that, we promote recovery in everything that we do, that we do it out loud. So we're walking as living proof as well. So jumbled some thoughts there, but I think you guys get what I'm trying to say. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's very important to promote recovery. Yes. So, but positive self-identity. I want you to think with me for a second, because I expected to get a lot more. Oh, awesome. Go ahead, Waterbury Center. Get your hand up.
Hello, can you hear us?
I can.
Hi, how you doing, Dominic? My name is Charlton, and I'm a person in recovery and looking to be a recovery coach at one point. But I like this, creating a positive self-identity, because I know for a very long time my inward dialogue on myself was very negative. So being able to help another person create that positive self-identity, be able to have the good inward dialogue with myself, turning, simple things like I can't to very profound I cans, and I won't to I will. And I think creating that in another person is fundamental to just living life and getting better and moving forward from the very dark places that I was when I was in active addiction, and also being able to help another person do the same thing.
Incredible. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you for that perspective. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. It's so important. That's what I was just about to ask everybody. Think about when you first got into recovery and how negative everything was around you, and how everything always felt like a pending doom, right? Like something like the shoe was gonna fall, and how important was it to have somebody positive in your life, or have a positive self-identity, or be able to look at the positive, right? How do we do that? How do we help? What do we do as coaches? Come on, coaches. What do we do? Please go ahead.
I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I keep trying to wait. But like for example, I had somebody tell me the other day, like they struggled with their confidence and their self-worth. And I just asked her, I said, what does it look like if you were confident in yourself? Like, and she goes, that is scary. Like, she straight up said, that's scary, And I think it's just asking those questions and getting curious and believing in people, and like, well, I can see you're really confident when you do this and this, and like acknowledging like what they're doing well and celebrating that. Like, we can celebrate success with our recoveries, and we can cheer them on, and we can like love them and wrap our arms around them and acknowledge all the amazing things that they're doing. And that's where that starts for me anyways.
Absolutely. No, I love it. Celebrate our victories. Yeah, Trav. Anyone else? Are we not feeling very positive today? Is everybody struggling with, hey, listen, sometimes it's hard to struggle with positive. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how long you've been in recovery. That's why we're having this conversation. I felt like this was one of the most important questions. That's why I'm not moving on. Penny, go ahead.
Sometimes I feel like a cheerleader, because it's rah, rah, sis, boom, bah. And I think they need that. I don't think that's corny at all. I think a lot of my clients really react to that, but that's just me.
Absolutely. I agree. Yvonne.
I feel like, Khalees, I'm talking a lot, but I just want to say this. I start very simple. Somebody said little tiny steps of small, really tiny things that they do. I just acknowledge that the fact that you came in to see me, and you came in on time, and you're sitting there and you're waiting for me, that right there is a really big thing. It's a big deal. You should really feel good about yourself for doing that. And the time that you're here and you're meeting with me, it's something positive. What would you be doing around this time if you didn't come see me? So I try to link that for them, that, the time that they came and they were on time, they were respectful, they were waiting, all of that was a positive in them. And so to get them to actually see that, and then, they'll come back and they'll come back and they'll come back, and, then things will start to open up for them. My goal is always to try to get them to come back.
Absolutely. And that positive reinforcement, and is another word for it, is supporting self-efficacy, right? You're supporting them, you're building that, you're empowering them by showing them, being a positive. What does it say that we are in the Recovery Coach Academy? What's one of our roles? Not just cheerleader, but what's the other one?
Motivator.
Motivator, yes. Any others? Tanya?
Lead by example.
Okay, what's that? What's another word for that? What's the role?
A role model. being-
Boom,
Model.
role model. Good. Yes. Role model. All right. So do we all think that it's important to create a positive self-identity and to help them achieve when you're caught in that in the grips of negativity? How hard is it for you? Let me ask you a personal question. How hard is it for you to be positive when you're consumed with negativity? Anybody want to be vulnerable? Talk about that. Go ahead, please.
I'll go. I think it's freaking crap, straight up. I'm just gonna be completely honest. And like, I could be like, I'm gonna have a great day today. And then you go to a meeting and it's like, oh, acknowledging every problem that could go wrong, all the fears there. Well, what if this happens? And I'm like, dude, chill out. Like, y'all are just, everybody's so serious sometimes and so negative.
I think we lost her.
Push us and rally around us can be consumed by all that. But it is hard.
Absolutely. It's easy to get sucked into, right? Matter of fact, Phil just talked about negative and you were there. That's right. He actually just talked about this, and I found it interesting that this was one of my questions for today, right? It's very easy to get sucked into that negativity. Aurel, you had something?
Yeah. Just you can feel like a phony, you can feel fake. If everything around you is going wrong and you're trying to be that positive force in a person's life. And so it definitely requires a lot of vigilance and work in your own life to be there for someone else, to be that for someone.
Absolutely. And then my mind is specifically went to ethics. I'm like, are we ethically obligated to care for ourselves? That's how my mind works. It's a facilitator brain. I can't help it, right? So that question immediately came to my mind. So, right, we are anyway. So, let's go on to the next one. Let's see what we got for this one here. So, how important do you believe being of service to others is for someone in recovery? How important do you believe it is being of service to others for someone in recovery? Go ahead.
I think it's major, and I think it's a tool that you can use, that I use, in the recovery process, depending where the person is at. If they can be of service, then I try to tap into that because it gives them purpose. It starts to, again, it starts to fuel on other things.
Absolutely. Thank you. Nicole.
I think it's very important because someone didn't give up on us. And if we didn't have that, would we be here today? So I believe as people in recovery, it's our responsibility to show up for the next person.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nicole. Val.
Yeah, it's so true. And I'm just gonna back them up. You want to be that one thing, that one consistent thing that they can count on. Early in my recovery, it was that one person, that I could always count on. And he was kind of like that bridge for me to get over, what it is I was going through and make it into recovery. And it's just so important that, we are there, that they can count on us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Val. And Tanya.
It's huge for me. It helps me stay accountable to myself, but it also helps me to stay grateful, and it helps me to stay in a positive mindset because I like anybody else can fall victim to negative thinking. And it gives me purpose. And honestly, it helps me feel like there was a purpose for all the suffering, if I can use it to help somebody just like me. And just knowing that, I can be a positive support in somebody's life who may not have that anywhere else. So it's huge for me. Thanks.
Absolutely. So can anybody tell me some areas that you are of service, or some areas of service that you might help a recovery to find? So if it's important for us, it's important for them, right? I don't know. You tell me. What are some ways that you serve? Go ahead, Tanya.
I volunteer at the Portland Recovery Community Center as a recovery coach. I have volunteered doing telephone recovery support. I have actually volunteered in office at the Recovery Community Center, and I also have a service role in a home group in a program for recovery.
Awesome.
And I just try to be a good human being.
In all excellent ways to serve. Love it. Anyone else? Remember that old question, who do we serve? That old question. Yvonne.
Again, I'm gonna say this one more time. You know, I am a trainer, but I wear 25 other hats. So when I say that, it's just so much components to working and supporting and helping an individual. You know, again, I've been at my place for 26 years, so I kind of know how to where and when to direct people. And so I help in all capacities, from volunteering to, you know, assisting with other programs and other staff and in other units with their clients. I worked in a lot of trauma, so I still see a lot of trauma individuals who, you know, go through things. So I'll pull them to the side and have some conversations with them. They usually feel better by the time they leave. But I help in all capacities with everybody's clients, recoveries, you know, even the OASIS program, the harm reduction program. So all capacities, I'm a helper and a supporter because I've gotten that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yvonne. Come on, coaches. Who do we serve? Who do you serve? How important is it? What are some other places you serve? Go ahead, Khalees.
I mean, like, I'm kind of like Yvonne, I'm a facilitator as well. So like I train, but I also provide like free community education awareness in our local community. You know, we go talk to different groups. We actually like work with the prison. We're doing a project with prisons now. Like I educate and support the wider community. I'm also a board member for Faces and Voices of Recovery UK. I do a lot of advocacy for young people. I also just end up supporting our RCA alumni because, you know, we have our community and then they need support, and who do they talk to? And then, you know, we have the support just people. Like we managed to get somebody into a rehab in Spain with her autistic son, and they're going to let her autistic son go with her. You know, just we navigate a lot over here. I mean, we have somebody who's looking for a recovery coach that speaks Spanish, and I just messaged Michael. You know, it's just, I'm always going to go and see what I can do to get that person support. And so I feel like we do go through a lot of hoops and barriers here, but I'm gonna get there. You know, I'm gonna figure out a way. So it's from local, individual, personal to a wider spectrum on all different levels. That's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you, Khalees. And Deborah?
So I'm glad you said that, Khalees. Service can come in many forms, and the funny thing over the years, I've become the most responsible person in my family. So you can find yourself being in service to an ailing parent or ailing sibling. I'm talking about the person in charge of making decisions about whether they live or die, or taking off machines. And that's self-service because you have to be able to manage your stuff. You need to be able to actively listen and interact with medical providers. And some of those skills you can use that in being of service to a family member who used to think like you was a hopeless case. I also do service for what we call them mutual aid groups. So I do service on an area level and on a regional level in my spare time. And you know, yeah, and then in other ways that's small and minute, but I think it might make a difference to the individual. And I think being of service, it gives me an opportunity to we was previously talking about self-identity and or maybe we were just previously talking about how we need to be how we take care of ourselves, or how do we provide hope if we not feeling very hopeful ourselves. And sometimes I might have that day where I'm not in the most hopeful person in that day, but if I make myself of service to somebody else, it immediately restores me or makes me feel hopeful all over again, right? Because when you're in service of somebody else or you're helping somebody else, I just get filled automatically, and I forget about what I was brooding over. Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deborah. Jody, you had your hand up. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Hi. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I give back in the work that I do. I found a lot of meaning in that, and it's really meaningful to my recovery to like be in the role that I'm in, but also giving back in the form of like being present for my family and showing like my nephew and my nieces that like they're loved and have people who can role model like being a positive presence in their life, so that like future generations know that recovery is possible before they feel the hopelessness. But also like talking in my community and being present at events and just being the face and voice of recovery, and really like being willing to shift people's thinking of what recovery looks like.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jody. So when you think about all of those things that everybody just shared, all this, all these things that we do to serve our communities, the recovery community, our families, all of these different things. Now imagine that we didn't have any of those, right? You didn't have any of those in your life. So I want you to think about being, somebody that's new, a recovery that's just coming in. How important is it to give them an opportunity to serve? Like, how important do you think this is? Like, because service, everybody just talked about how service changes something in them, right? It does something for them. It creates something in them. Like, so when we're talking about treating our recoveries as resources, when given an opportunity, we're treating them as a resource, an opportunity to serve. Like, what are some of those opportunities? This is where Waterbury jumps in. I'm kidding. I'm not trying to put you on blast, but this would be a good one for the Waterbury Center, yeah? Anybody else? Penny.
When people give service, they also meet community, and for me, community is one of the most important parts of my recovery. And it's a way for a new person to get out of themselves. And it's a way even today for me to get out of myself and for them to meet other people and work together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Penny. So I like this. Opportunities to serve also empowers others in their recovery to know that I believe they have something amazing to share with others. Thank you. That was perfectly said, Jody. Perfectly said, right? You're showing them that you believe in them. You're giving them an opportunity to believe in themselves, right? So that's why I was looking for like a volunteer or somebody that, helps out at the centers, right? Like when given an opportunity to to have that connection and feel that connection as somebody who's new to recovery, to have that that resource available to basically connect them to the greater community and give them that hope shot, just, you know, whenever they're there, right? So that is my last question for that side. So the recovery premises, also known as the seat, is treating people as resources, right? So it says first that all individuals are unique and have special needs, goals, health, attitudes, and behaviors and expectations for recovery. The second is that persons in recovery with mental illness, alcohol or drug addiction, and or gambling share some similarities. However, management of their own lives and mastery of their own futures will require different pathways at times. And the third is all persons should be offered equal access to recovery and the opportunity to participate in their recovery process, right? So when we're talking about treating people as resources, right? All persons, so this is the question I really want to talk about. So it says all persons should be offered equal access to recovery and the opportunity to participate in their own recovery process. What is our art? How do we get people to do that? Like, how do we help people to do that? How do we help to make, to offer this, right? How do we help to give them the opportunity? Anita, go ahead.
I feel like it's just asking questions like, what does it look like for you?
Okay. Thank you, Nita. Lady, you had something? Well, I see you over in the cut, so. No? Okay. Khalees, you had something?
Well,
Oh, you froze.
am I hearing that right?
You froze, so I didn't hear what you were asking.
I don't know why my internet is messing up. I'm sorry. You were asking, how do we get them to actively participate in their recovery, right? And take steps in that.
Yeah, and give them access to and an opportunity to participate in their own recovery process, treating them as a resource, right?
Well, then we're going to be like a resource broker. We're going to be curious to what recovery looks like to them. What do they want? What does success look like to them? And I mean, and even then, like if they are telling us that this is what they want and then they're not making those changes, that's when we like develop discrepancy. Like I hear you say, like, you know, you said you wanted to do this, but like nothing's changed. Like, I mean, I had a recovery and she kind of was like that. She started to do that. She was making changes and then she kind of like stopped and I was like, are you ready to make change? And she was like, nobody's ever asked me that before. Can I think about this? And then she came back to me and she said, I've been doing the same thing for 10 years. I don't know if I'm ready to make change. Well, that's a great start that you just acknowledge that, you know, we can roll with that, but yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Thank you. Anyone else? Tanya.
I guess for me, it's just letting them know that recovery is not a linear path, you know, and we are all different and different things are going to work for different people. And again, using them as the best resource, you know, what is going to work for you? You know, what do you think it is that's going to work for you? You know, what does recovery look like to you? And finding out and going from there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. Anyone else?
I think motivating them by bringing up past successes, past goals that they've reached, where they were successful in the past, can help to motivate them to, you know, tackle the next task at hand or to reach the goals that they have and, you know, that they've planned out for themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nicole. Anyone else? When you read the recovery premises, this seat here, any thoughts, statements, questions? always love the part of management of their own lives and mastery of their own futures will require different pathways at time. Does anybody do anything different in their recovery today that they didn't do in early recovery? Anybody want to share anything? We got like, I don't want to close for at least 5 minutes, so I'll take 1 or 2 hands. Val, go ahead.
Yeah, when I initially came into recovery, I was just on one track and one pathway, and that was fellowship programs, and that's because I didn't know there was anything else out there. But then once I learned that there were multiple pathways, and I started taking multiple pathways all at the same time, that's when I personally like bloomed, and then I got into recovery, and it was kind of like that was my new addiction, was then discovering all these different pathways, and I just kept learning and learning and learning, and then eventually people in authority started to notice me for the right reasons, and then doors started opening, and then opportunities started opening for me. Yeah, and that's just because I had a very narrow view in the very beginning, and it's just because I did not know that there was multiple pathways out there.
I love that. Like a flower, right? Just started. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Khalees, go ahead.
I was similar to Val, like she just said. Whenever I was in recovery, I started in mutual aid meetings. And I think for me, like, I'll never forget being like 2 years in recovery and being in a mutual aid meeting. And I moved to England. And so I was like, everybody in here is still doing the same stuff they were doing 2 years ago. And I needed more than that those meetings could provide for me. That was like, I needed a wider community to plug into different things for me to grow and continue to grow and learn and develop myself. And today recovery looks different for what I do. So I think it's just, as we continue to grow in our recovery process, we're going to pick up new tools or things that worked better for us, or I really liked that. And some stuff just becomes normal.
Absolutely. Tanya.
Everything about my recovery looks different today than it did when I first came in here. I can just start with like meditation. I can meditate now. I could not meditate when I first came in. I thought it was strange. I thought the whole concept of it was strange. I have ADHD, so sitting and getting quiet was just a strange phenomenon. I just couldn't. And I couldn't get quiet with myself. That was such a huge struggle. But yeah, so over some time, I've been able to find myself and find my voice. That was hard for me too, finding my voice. So even just right now, speaking to you guys is like such a huge change for me. So all my recovery looks different today, but it's because people help me find myself and my voice. So thanks.
Absolutely. Very well said. Awesome. So for me, it was what it looked like in the beginning was very, very just, very on the spiritual path. And then as I started to grow in recovery, I started to realize that I wasn't taking care of mind, body, and spirit, right? So I started to bring in a lot of holistic stuff and started to really venture out into like, what else is going to help me? Like there needs to be more, right? So I started, and like, just being that, that beacon of like, listen, like if that's not working for you, there's this over here, and then there's this great. So like I really identified with Val when like I started to learn about multiple pathways. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I love all of this, right? So I just started to like gobble it up, man. Like I just fell in love with like all these different things, like because I had gotten so stagnant in recovery. I needed something different. Like the old way wasn't working for me, right, anymore. It just wasn't. And though I still incorporate some of my old way, I have so many multiple, right? So when it talks about that, might require different pathways at times, right? And like, how do we stay on this journey of self-discovery as coaches so that we can help the people coming behind us on their own journey of self-discovery by treating them as a resource, right? As their own best resource. This has been a beautiful group. You guys are really just fantastic. I feel like there's so much great information on here for coaches to come. This is going to be a multiple part series. This is just the seed. We're going to crack into motivational interviewing and some other things at the next session. It's going to be great. We're going to like really deep dive on active listening. And there's going to be some really like awesome scenarios where we're going to do some cool stuff. So I'd love to have you guys back for our next one. It's going to be cool. So thank you guys for coming. Go ahead, Arel.
Yeah, I like that graphic that you had with the stool. Is it possible that you can share that with us as a tool?
That's a Travis question.
Let me see.
Hey, Trav.
I don't currently have a I know it's in the Recovery Coach Academy manual.
Oh yeah, it's in your manual.
Oh yeah, then I got it. All right, cool. I just
It's
haven't-
on
all right.
And I
page
think if
138.
you just Google the CCAR stool,
Yeah.
like CCAR recovery coaching stool, I'm sure it'll pop up as well.
All right, cool.
So you can
Gotcha.
get the digital image. Yeah, you'd probably want to Google it if you want a digital. But you do have 138, is it, Trav?
Yeah, page 138.
138 in the RCA manual. Scott.
All right, got you.
Yep. So like I said, I'm grateful that all of you came today. It was a great session. And go in love and light and have a beautiful day.